Hi everybody, I'm Dimitris Mallas. I'm a journalist for CNN Greece, and I will be the host for the next panel session here at Delphi Economic Forum. And I think we have to discuss in the next more or less 30-35 minutes a very interesting subject about chips competition and collaboration, the EU Chips Act and the global landscape. At least that's the title of this panel. But I think we have to point out that the competition in the chips market, it's very strong. So I have a very distinguished panel, I will say. I have with us Vicky Loizou. She's the Secretary General for Private Investments at the Ministry of Development, Hellenic Republic. Thanks very much for being here. I have on the other side Mr. Emmanouel Zervakis. He's the President of the Hellenic Emerging Technologies Industry Association. That's a long title. I have to read it from my notes, to be honest. We also have Federico Menna. He's the CEO of EIT Digital over here. Very interesting things that they're doing there. We can talk about the startup ecosystem and especially the role in the EU about the chips. We also have Babis Bakolias. He's the Director and General Manager of Ansys. We're going to talk also about things over there. And last but not least, that they say in my village, as they say, we have Antonia Hmaidi. I don't know if I pronounced that right. You have to spare me with that. She's a senior analyst at MERICS. So, not to move a little bit with the conversation, what I would like first to do is to set up a little bit what's going on worldwide. So I'm going to ask from Antonia here to talk a little bit about what is the current global landscape regarding competition in the chips market. So, have to open. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I think the first thing to notice is that really chips are the arena for great power competition between China and the US currently. This is not only because everyone cares about chips and chips are so important to digital transition, but also because the US especially cares a lot about AI, China cares a lot about AI, but also chips are one area where the US and its allies really are leading the way, especially in these high-end chips that are used for AI. So when looking maybe for a choke point or a way to make sure that China doesn't become the greatest country in the world or the great power, the one great power, to make sure it isn't supplanted by China. Chips are actually, or the chip supply chain overall is a really, really good lever for the US. Importantly though, you can't really do chips without China currently. So the supply chain doesn't really, the supply chain is so integrated that China, and if you sort of look at Taiwan and how important Taiwan is, it is really, really difficult to think of a supply chain that would exclude China, Taiwan, or Northeast Asia, especially beyond these kind of high-end chips. And you can't just replace one NVIDIA AI chip with another chip that was made from Infineon for a completely different purpose. This isn't possible. So what is everyone doing about this? Everyone is now investing really, really large. And this includes countries in Europe, especially Germany, of course. This includes the US that has just announced its big investments in some of the big companies. And this also includes China, which is becoming less and less transparent about what they're actually doing, which of course makes it a lot more difficult for us in Europe to know what to do. And there is a real risk of a subsidy race going on right now between China and the US, with Europe sort of caught in the fire, you could say.
Or caught in the middle.
Yes.
So, Mr. Menna, you can tell us now, okay, Antonia here gives you a very good pass, I would say. So, how is Europe trying to react, and what is the importance of the EU Chips Act?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, first of all. Yeah, that's a very good transition, from the China perspective to Europe. I'm part of EIT Digital, which is connected to the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So we are very close to the European Commission. And the CHIPS Act is something we welcome very much. Because, first of all, it's the first time ever that on digital side, at least, we are on par with other superpowers in the world. US is also having similar programs. And it's a very ambitious program. The 20% goal by 2030 of having the production in Europe is ambitious. And it can only be achieved if Europe works as a single continent that means that the deployment of these actions should be done both at European level but also in the member states. And we see that, like Germany, for example, and other member states are investing a lot of money to catch up. But indeed, the big competition is now with China. So it's an action that we needed, and it's very timely, thankfully. So I'm very positive about it. We have to say, however, that because now everyone speaks about the generative AI and a lot of other digital technologies, but very often we forget that there's no digital without chips. So
that's very important, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So if we don't invest and we don't do it fast, then can be very risky for all the other sectors that depend on digital. And when I look at ourselves as EIT Digital, we really try to see this as an ecosystem action. So I said the European Union with the member states, but it also means that the various companies that are in this field work together. It's not a competitive game anymore. It's more of an ecosystem game where we work on shortening the supply chain, securing it, because we see also the geopolitical issues, but also, and most important, we work on the skills, because we cannot think of having a true European chips industry without having skilled workers and skilled specialists that know how to produce, design, and implement chips in the European way, let me say. So the skills part shouldn't be overlooked.
Okay, I'm holding that on that skills because I'm going to mention that before. No, so we had the global level. We have also the European level. I'm trying to go now to the Greek level. So I would like to ask Ms. Loizou here, what are the opportunities or the challenges for Greece in this chips market that's evolving and all this evolution of the chips market? How can we take advantage perhaps of that?
Well, hello, I would like also to thank for this exceptional panel and be part of it. As already Federico mentioned and Antonia, we talk about a geopolitical issue, and Greece could play a significant role in this creation of a European ecosystem, let's say, both because of the supply chain and the fact that geographically it is in the crossroads of 3 continents, but also because of the fact that Greece already, let's say, has a role to play either in the raw materials with gallium or the design centers. And of course, there is already pilot lines, and as a government, we really think that giving priority to microelectronics and semiconductors is really important for the economy and the added value of Greece economy, but also for, let's say, pioneering in a European level. So we try to conduct a national strategy together with the private sector and all the competent authorities of the government, the Secretariat for Industry, the Secretariat for Research and Innovation. We want all together to have a national strategy so as to deal with issues as skills and talent, which of course we think that it is a competitive advantage of Greece, but specific to semiconductors, we need to do a lot more.
So just to understand that, what you are saying is that microelectronics and the chips in general, and the microelectronics in general, are something that it's a strategic priority for the Greek government, and you're planning to have a national strategy about that, right?
Yes, exactly, and to create some incentives, either state aid or a legal framework that can really help to this direction.
Do we have a timeline for that? I don't know if you can say. That's the journalist coming out of me now, okay, not the moderator. It's not something that I plan to ask, but you know.
It is something that is already happening. We are in close cooperation with HETIA, the association, and the Secretary General For industry, Ms. Themis Eftichidou is responsible for conducting this.
Okay, so it's something coming up in the
yes,
in the
next few months.
Okay, that's really interesting.
That,
and very,
we are going to have a national strategy.
and very important for me. So now you gave a pass to Mr. Zervakis over there from Hetia. Okay, the question is the same. What are the opportunities for Greek companies and Greece in general in this chips market that it's creating and it's expanding very fast?
Yes, first of all, let me thank you also the organizer for this excellent forum. I believe that as Greece, this is a golden opportunity. As Hetia, we started before 20 years. There are only few companies in the semiconductor, 4 or 5 if I remember correct. Now we are almost 25. As Mrs. Loizou mentioned, we are experts on design. And we have to take advantage this opportunity. We are a member of CHIPS Act, we are a member of EU. We participate in this initiative. Of course, we welcome this initiative. And this is a golden opportunity to invest even more on what we are already strong, which is the design. But at the same time, we have to put investments also in other pillars of the semiconductor. More specific, we can do investments on test facilities, on packaging facilities, and then, of course, going to fabrication lines for prototypes for really niche needs. Of course, it's not realistic to say that we can have a foundry right now in Greece, but if we take advantage of all this initiative, we can go to a next level, and then, of course, with the help of the government and the right incentives, we can attract a big semiconductor company in order to come to Greece and eventually have a foundry. But the biggest challenge in order to do so, it is the talent, which is already mentioned. I believe this is globally, but also in Greece, there is a big lack of skilled workforce. This is the biggest challenge globally. It is the same also in Greece. And while the big investments in foundries, of course, is taking place in Germany, as Greece, we can grab this opportunity and make, let's say, something like a semiconductor academy here in Greece. Not only, of course, to train engineers for the Greek market, but become a European hub. So there are a lot of opportunities there. We are in close collaboration with the government in order to orchestrate this in Greece as Hetia. And it's definitely a golden opportunity for us to go to a next level and develop further the semiconductor ecosystem of Greece, which is not only Greek companies anymore. There are already multinational companies with R&D centers here in Greece. And of course, we have to address the challenge with the work power, the skilled work power.
Okay, the multinationals, one of the multinationals they're mentioning is Ansys that Mr. Bakolias come from. But before that, just to clarify a little bit for our audience, what you are saying is that it's pretty difficult to have perhaps a foundry or a factory that produces chips here in Greece. That's pretty hard, but there are categories of like design and packaging that we can excel there and have.
Yes, actually, we are already experts in design. We can be even better. We can be a champion on this and on specific design area like RF design. But there are other pillars in the technical semiconductor value chain, which is, okay, the factory, okay, which is the last one.
But it's the last one.
But we have to add the other pillars, which are the test facilities, the packaging facilities. So if we have all the other pillars, then it will be more realistic and less risky for a big semiconductor company to come and have a foundry in Greece.
Okay, Mr. Bakolias, almost all of the participants were talking about skills. We're talking about talent. So the question is that does Greece, or if you can talk a little bit about Europe as well, have the right personnel and infrastructure to have the right personnel, meaning to be a major player for the, do we have the people to work in this kind of industry? That's the thing. You're hiring, for example. You're trying to find people. That's why I'm asking that question to you.
So I came here earlier on and I watched some panels on AI.
Yeah.
And the room was full of people. When we spoke about chips, it's half empty, okay? That's more or less the situation in the talent pool as well. Yeah.
It's open.
It's on.
You have to closer to your mouth, perhaps.
Okay, so that's
now it's much better. Okay.
So the half-empty room with a full room for AI is more or less the situation in the talent landscape.
So what you're saying is that AI is more hyped than the chips,
Of
even
course,
though
yes,
you cannot get AI without chips.
No, I'm saying that the AI industry is attracting a lot of talent because it's very trendy, very sexy. Yeah, well, the chips industry is not that trendy. It's a dinosaur of an industry, so it suffers an image impact. It doesn't have a very good image. Although it's very well-paid jobs, they don't attract too many engineers. That's why the chip academy mentioned by Emmanouel, that's why there's activity from the European Commission to start more masters in microelectronics and also to have a campaign to improve the image of the industry. As for us in Greece, we find it very difficult to find experienced engineers, and this is because the local ecosystem is small, so there's not a lot of experience going around. I can mention some figures, like in Europe, there are about 200,000 people employed directly in the semiconductor sector. In Greece, it could be something like 300 people altogether.
300 people?
Yeah, I'd say not more than that. Manoli, what do you think?
It can be 500, but this is the magnitude of order in any case.
In Ireland, for example, there's about 20,000 people engaged in the semiconductor sector. About 3,000 of those are in very high-quality R&D posts. About, I think it's 11,000 would be in technical positions to serve the foundries already installed in Ireland for the chip production. So Europe now will be building more capacity, more fabs in Europe will require more technical skilled people that do not exist, they have to be trained. And also with Europe becoming more active in design of chips, will also require more design skills in the sector.
But also what you are saying is that, if I understand that correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what you are saying is that the problem is that we don't have enough talent. We're trying to find out in the semiconductors and the chips market, but it's a little bit difficult because of the lack of talent in general in digital, especially because of AI that attracts. So the chips market has to be more attractive to the talent. That's what you're saying.
Yes, we need the same talent. By the way, Ansys is a company that makes software tools for the design of chips. So we need software people. And the AI industry also needs software people. So the EDA industry, which is what we do, cannot grow that fast as the AI industry.
But you need to be more attractive. Oh, okay. Let's say now that the thing is that we as Europe have to do something more. So I had a question written down for Ms. Loizou here about what the governments can do in Europe in order to promote the chips industry. You mentioned some stuff before. What else can we do? And also, not just as Greece, but also Federico was saying that before that we have to work a little bit as a single unity. So what more can you do as a government? Besides giving incentives, something else that you can do?
I think that there are many things that a government can do, because when we talk about talent, we can work on the education level. We can work together with the research institutes so as to promote this kind of research. I think that the fact that we are preparing a holistic national strategy should be part of a European strategy, actually. And we want Greece to play a protagonistic role in this area, because the fact that it is a new area gives us an advantage, and it is something that we can really play a role if we really decide it and do what needs to be done. what is really important also in a European level are synergies. I don't think that a member state itself, like Greece or another, even a bigger country like Germany, can achieve something by itself. We really need to cooperate and have a European strategy and share best practices, share the experience, and work together towards the future.
Okay, that's interesting, very interesting. Also gives me a pass for here, Antonia, to ask what Europe should do differently in order to play. You were mentioned before that Europe is a little bit behind, perhaps. So what can? But we have the EU Chips Act. We have national strategies as the one that. What else can we do as Europe in order to make it?
Yeah, I think Europe has actually taken some really good steps, and I think there has also always been European companies who were very, very active and very important in the supply chain. Obviously, Germany is often mentioned, and I'm German, so I know them the best, but France, even sort of many different countries have a really important role to play.
And Netherlands.
The Netherlands, of course, ASML, yes. I think what Europe is increasingly, what we're seeing is the US is really focused on these high-end chips. At the same time, China is really looking to dominate legacy chips, foundational chips, which is one of the areas where the EU is traditionally really strong in. And increasingly, the question is, what role is there for the EU or for Europe in this scenario? And I think the thing that is really important here is to work together and to not try to sort of have a completely autonomous supply chain, because it won't work. If everyone is suddenly investing in high-end manufacturing of chips, one, I mean, it's very expensive. Two, we need to package these chips as well. We need to design these chips. There's lots of things that we need to do. But three, also, which European companies are actually consumers of these high-end chips? There's not that many. European companies might be consumers of products that use these high-end chips, but not necessarily the chips. So I think thinking about it differently, thinking about it in the way of strategic indispensability, Europe needs to be so important to the supply chain as a whole that it can't be cut off, which is ultimately what we are worried about, of course. So thinking of which are the areas where we already have strengths and can continue to invest and sort of keep investing more is, I think, a really good idea. So I really like the idea of, okay, Greece already has a strength in design. Let's look into more design. Greece probably has a lot of capital factors that would help with packaging and testing, which Germany would be terrible for instance. Let's try and do this together. But as colleagues have also said, this only works if we actually do it as one block and sort of decide together, okay, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to focus on. And the other big problem is actually government capacity, especially government technical capacity. The only way this works is if you know the supply chain in and out, and you know which parts of the supply chain you're currently weak in, which part of the supply chains you're currently strong in. We have a really big problem with governments not necessarily knowing enough about the supply chain and thinking, well, we're now building a fab. This fab will now be able to produce all the chips that Germany ever needs. Okay, that's interesting, but I would like to ask Mr. Menna, because of your role as EIT Digital in the innovation part and the startups, are there any startups or scale-ups in the chips market in Europe? Do you see any of that? Because what Antonia here was saying, okay, we set up the foundation, but there has to be companies after that.
Yeah, well, it's of course a very investment-heavy domain, so we don't see as many startups as in other domains like the software or AI, because it requires long-term investments and really heavy investments.
It's not so attractive, perhaps.
Yeah, it's also, as my colleagues were saying, it's also maybe not the most attractive, and also it's something that became very clear only recently. So for a few years that was not really a priority, and we see now the urgency that we have. But there was a study by SIFTA that showed that there are approximately 500, between 500 and 600 startups in Europe dealing with chips. 75% of them are in the seed phase, so very young companies, but with great technology. And the remaining 25% is between Series A and C. So
but that's an increase since the past.
It is. It is. And you see that from this funnel that you have the seed companies coming.
Okay.
So that's encouraging. There are also European initiatives like the one I represent, the EIT and the EIT
That's
Digital,
why I asked the question.
that are supporting these companies through trainings, seed investments, support to Series A and B fundraising through a network of investors. And we see more and more companies from the chips domain that are coming to us for these services. So it's, we are, of course, not there yet, but the trend is good.
Okay. So I would like to ask also, Mr. Zervakis, Mrs. Bakolias, okay, about, we talk a little bit about what the governments are doing. There is a lot of initiatives, the EU Chips Act, the startups are coming, they're increasing, but what should what should be the next steps from companies that are based in Europe or in the chips market in order to be a major player in a global landscape, which seems to grow pretty fast? It's a market that grows very fast now. So what should we do? What you should do? That's the question.
Just to give you an idea, because you mentioned about the market, there was an analysis saying that by 2030 it will be $1 trillion, the semiconductor market. So it's booming in any case. I would like also to say that, okay, semiconductor is not that appealing as AI, but I believe that these two are getting closer. What I mean, initially when you are doing Internet of Things application, you have nodes and you set the data, and all the AI is done in the cloud where you have resources, processing, memory, you don't care about the power, so everything is okay. But nowadays the trend is actually to try and have semiconductor devices that can enable AI on the edge. That is the trend right now. So what that means, instead of sending all the data back to the cloud and do all the processing, you have to do on the edge. But unfortunately, on the edge, you don't have the resources. You don't have the memory, you don't have the processing power, you don't have the power. So all the chip makers are trying to do processors and microcontrollers, semiconductor devices in general, that can assist AI on the edge. So this is the hype. So in Europe, eventually we'll have to invest towards this direction, but not only on fabricating the actual semiconductor devices, which it's obvious to do, of course, but also in the meaning that you have to consume also. So in Europe, we have a lot of SMEs that they are not designing semiconductor, but they are consuming semiconductor in order to make medical devices or industrial things and stuff like that. So eventually we have to go to that direction and try to put semiconductor together with AI, because this is the trend coming. Actually, it's not coming, it's almost here. Okay, so it's happening right now. So we have to, let's say, gather together and put together these two different things and start investing towards this direction.
So, just to understand that, what you're saying here is that perhaps there's an opportunity for European companies because of the large number of SMEs in Greece, or in Europe in general, not the European Union, there are a lot of SMEs. If to combine hardware and software solutions in devices.
Actually, Antonia mentioned this, that, okay, there are a lot of semiconductor devices fabricated outside Europe that enable this kind of application. We should start using this application with software and other things in order to make smart devices, let's say.
And also to create a new market here in that.
Course.
So the European companies that are doing that kind of stuff, and perhaps they will be funded by EIT Digital or be part of incentives from national governments, could find an audience and customers in the European market. That's what you're saying.
Of course, and especially in Greece, because, okay, Germany, of course, has the leading role in fabrication of the device, for sure. So we can play such a role.
Still, I think even in Germany, there are a lot of SMEs that they're not.
Yeah, sure, of
they
course.
could do the same thing. So, okay, Mr. Bakolias.
was the question?
The question is the same. What we should do here in Europe in order to, what's the new steps, the next steps by the companies, not by the governments or the institutions?
Yeah, well, companies to grab the opportunities that the governments are giving them, like to install more capacity in the European Union, to produce more chips, so to become more independent. What Emmanouel is suggesting assumes that we have chips to consume. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have to produce them locally, which is very important. And
or also design them locally.
And also design them locally. Now, Antonia mentioned about the obsession of the US with the high-end chips. This is mostly likely because of the importance of those chips in AI, training the models, and or doing the inference of the models. So this is where Europe also has to become strong. Right now, this market is dominated exclusively by the US. It's NVIDIA, 80% of the market, and AMD following up. There's no European player in these chips. I know there are startups working towards this direction. It's very important for these startups to be supported. And also Europe, besides its efforts, Europe's trying to make it easier to design chips for startups by implementing this design platform. Yeah? A design platform is a cloud tool that will host tools like ours, like Ansys or Cadence or Synopsys, to make it easier for startups to design.
But that's something that a government or EU should do in a European Union level to create that platform.
European, yeah. The intention is to pull talent and innovation out of the universities and into the market.
So, yeah. Just to understand that, okay, now it's, sometimes the journalists we're trying to understand in order to write them about. What you are saying is that the European Union, as a union, as an organization, should try, besides the incentives that they are doing, and the EU Chips Act, also to create a platform.
This is happening.
It's happening?
It is happening, yeah.
It is?
It's very important.
Okay, I didn't understand that correctly, that's why.
Centrally in the European Union. It's called the European Design Platform. To make it easier for startups or university spin-offs to go into the market, the design market. It's very important. Greece will participate in there.
In this European design platform?
Yes,
as a government or as the companies?
Well, companies.
We're part of that. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
The primary.
It will be done through a we are going to establish a competence center here in Greece. Okay. And this will be the gate to the European platform.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, our time is almost up. I'm a little bit 30 seconds before the time is going. So I'm not going to ask any more questions because we don't have the time. And my good friend Fanouris is waiting to coordinate the next panel, which is about cultivating a European innovation ecosystem for digital sovereignty. I think you're going to discuss also the same stuff that we're talking about in the last minutes of our session. Thanks very much for the conversation and the panel. I think it was a good discussion. Yeah. I hope it was a good discussion. So thanks very much.
Important things for last.